So, I have crossed 10,000 subscribers and I couldn't be any more thankful for you all helping me get to this point. You know, I never thought I'd even make it across 1,000 subscribers, but time and time again, I am proven wrong and I just want to give my biggest thanks. So why am I saying I crossed 10,000 subs? Well, this is because I decided to do something special and ask you all on what your favorite Uber rares from each set was. The voting process worked by having a vote casted by eliminating a few of the least popular Ubers from each set, then having them compete in a finalist round to determine who the most popular Uber was amongst the most popular Ubers. This video is to document the final round's results. However, in each Uber section, I will also go over each of the round's individual results quickly before the next Uber in the list. I must note that this poll started when version 12.0 was the current global version, so don't expect any Uber rares from version 12.1 or beyond or Phono to be mentioned anywhere, as they weren't in the global version when the polling started. The points that are brought up in this video are all points made by the wonderful folks who voted in their Ubers. Before I get started, I want you to comment down below your favorite Uber rare in the comments, and while you're down there, why not give this video a like and maybe even subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Anyways, let's get talking about the Battle Cats community's favorite Uber rares. Coming in coldly at number 20 is Kaiji Claws, having received only one vote in the finalist round. Kaiji Claws is an Uber rare from the X-Mescal set. Speaking of X-Mescals, him being the only guy in the set was one of the several things that made him stand out and why some people voted for him. Anyways, Kaiji Claws is a variant of Maeda Kaiji from the Vajra set, where instead of tanking black enemies, he now tanks red enemies and also tanks Aku enemies in his true form. He also increases his attack power by 100% at 40% health and 50% in his true form. He is also immune to waves. This means that he is somewhat of a diverse matchup against the enemies from Berserk Kori to Wicked Face and Possessed Empress. Kaiji Claws is also unique in the fact that he's one of the few dedicated Aku tankers in the game, with the only others being Yami and Garu. However, the latter is a generalist tank. A lot of people also seem to enjoy his yellow complexion, as I've had several people say nothing but piss Kaiji, so there you go. In the first round of the X-Mescal's voting, the Ubers that got the lowest amounts of votes were Santaku, Holy Coppermine, and Yuletide Nurse. For the third round, Frosty Kai was actually coming close to winning, but Kaiji beat her out by only 18 votes. For the 19th spot with 3 votes, it's Sweet Aphrodite. Sweet Aphrodite is an Uber rare from the Valentine's Gal set, who has a slightly shorter range, damage, and health compared to her regular counterpart, but still high enough to be a good sniper. Her targets are red and black, and as many people pointed out, makes her a great counter to Professor A, who is seen as a very difficult enemy to take out thanks to his extremely high standing range and DPS. A few people like the Poor Man too, with their evolved name of Chocolatey and her general attire. The Valentine Gal set was one of the few sets I felt I knew the outcome even before the poll went public, because Aphrodite is already a good Uber, and with the competition she has, it was basically no contest. In the first round, Sweet Love Mikako was eliminated, and in the second round, First Love Misra was axed. And since there was no Ubers left, she would have won round 3 by default. Beating out Sweet Aphrodite with 4 votes is Bunny and Canard. Bunny and Canard is a variant of Warlock and Pierre for the Easter Carnival set. Bunny and Canard, like their regular counterparts, can only target specific traits, these being red in all of their forms, black in their first with an immunity to freeze and slow, zombie in their second form with zombie killer, and Aku in their third form with toxic and surge immunity. Being an attack only unit, they come with some extreme stats. This makes them a very good nuker against the traits he targets, especially against enemies like Red Energy, Baku, and enemies with Death Surge. There were also several people who thought Canard's creepy design was a lot like Five Nights at Freddy's. Anyways, this was another Uber who I wasn't surprised by the results, though I was surprised that Kenshin was voted out first, mainly because I would think her having Colossus Slayer in her true form would give her the edge, but I guess people liked Kamakura more. Still doesn't matter, as he got squashed by Bunny and Canard. For the winner of the first of 2 tiebreaker polls I had to hold was Count Yukimura, beating out Bunny and Canard. Count Yukimura is a Halloween variant of Sanado Yukimura, which swaps his black targeting for floating and has a 30% chance to survive a hit. A lot of people like using him as a tertiary Awakened Bahamut due to not being as powerful as him or regular Yukimura, but is still super useful in rushing down enemies, especially if they're floating. He also pairs very well with Fishman due to their similar attributes. A lot of people also appreciate the immaculate drip he brings to the table and the upgrade to his claws that make him look much more threatening due to the curviness of them instead of being a sharp angle. Also, since I'll be crucified if I don't mention this, but there were so many people that said it's Morbid time because Michael Morbius and Count Yukimura are both vampires. Anyways, another set I was not surprised by because regular Yukimura is already popular, so having another one was something people were really excited for. though the runner-up of Skull Rider Volves was pretty interesting to see, but that just comes down to badass Skeledragon, Dragon, and yeah, I can agree with that. For the winner of the Others category, a category for all the other Ubers to go in where they wouldn't fit anywhere else, is Princess Cat with 8 votes in the finalist round. Princess Cat is an Uber from Royal Fest. Her main attributes are her high standing range of 551, good damage with mini wave, along with weaken against red, angels, and zombies. The main thing people enjoyed about her was her lore, as she is one of the most lore heavy units in the game. She is the one to send you out for her research and excavations, as she wanted to study the Aku before she was corrupted by the magic of the Aku and became the possessed empress and unleashing the Aku into the world. The other main thing people like about her is that she's a pretty good backliner, as she can stand at a safe distance from most enemies in the game and fire off some good damage, along with being able to weaken quite a diverse cast of enemies. While it isn't too relevant, she is immune to curse, meaning that she can be useful on stages with, say, Loris. Now when it comes to the votes, I had accidentally forgot to put her in the Others category in the first round, so nothing was voted out there, but when compared to the other options, those being the Valkyrie Twins, Lovestruck Lesser Demon, and Kronos the Bride, it seems that she has swept her competition, though it was somewhat close in the third round. Now for our first Uber from a regular set of 13 votes is Warlock and Pierre. Warlock and Pierre, as discussed in their Easter counterpart, can only target certain traits. In all of their forms, they can target aliens, and in their first form, can also target floating and angels in their second form. In their third form, they trade a target for some Omega tier stats, and being one of the few non-barrier breaker units who could break Yukan and Ultra Baba's barriers. They also gain a bunch of immunities in their third form. They gain freeze, knockback, slow, and weaken immunity, and with talents can also gain curse, wave, and warp immunity. Since a lot of aliens can status units, having all of those immunities means that they won't be hampered in their advance. Curse immunity makes it so they can't be shut down from attacking aliens, and wave immunity helps with some matchups and has a niche in floor 47 as one of the most reliable ways to get rid of Puzzly in case corrupted Maneko gets to them. While the third form has great stats, their other forms also have some good uses. The first form is one of the best cheesing units in the game thanks to them having the Base Destroyer ability. Base Destroyer is an ability on some enemies such as Cory and Kamal, and for cat units is exclusive to Warlock and Pierre in his first form. This ability deals 4 times more damage against bases. This means that at level 30 Warlock and Pierre deals 400,000 damage to bases, and at level 50 can deal almost 700,000 to bases. Probably the least used form is their second form, which has a niche as a good moneymaker in Angel and Alien stages. When it comes to their design, people also like the creepiness of their design, as well as the giant gorilla-like creature in its third form. There was stiff competition in this set, mainly against Detective Vigler and Sharpshooter Saki, the former for his design and research combo, and Saki for her nuking abilities, especially thanks to her talents that she gained in the middle of the polling process. However, Warlock and Pierre's cheesing potential and absurd damage against aliens in their third form proved to be the winning factor for them. For the last seasonal Uber Rare, coming in with 14 votes in the finalist round is Seashore Kai. Seashore Kai is from the Summer Gal set and a variant of Kai. Her traits are swapped from Floating Resist to Blackened Zombie Resist with Zombie Killer. Most people said that they use her to help tank zombie enemies due to her not being the best matchup against black enemies. She is known to be able to carry some zombie stages due to most zombie enemies not having absurd stats. For example, she has a niche use in stages like Parade of the Dead due to being able to just eat so many hits from Dabu and most of the other zombies present in the stage. People also like the dolphins that replaced her pig machine, and there are quite a few people who reference Mei from the Guilty Gear franchise. Now I haven't played any of the games myself, but from what I could find is that she can summon some aquatic animals for some of her attacks, including one named Mr. Dolphin, so that probably explains it. And another thing, a lot of you were hella down bad for her in my Google forums, but what can I do? I'm not your dad. Anyways, she had a lot of competition with Summer Luga, who was the only other Summer Uber who was close to beating her, though Seashore Kai came out on top, entering the finalist round with only 15 votes over Summer Luga. Now this mighty war machine came here in 13th place with 19 votes, this being the mighty Thermae Deluxe. Thermae Deluxe is from the Iron Legion set, and like all the Ubers from that set, they target zombies. They have the strong ability against zombies and can freeze them for a second. They also have Omni Strike, allowing them to strike possible zombies that burrow behind them. Their true form gains a boost to their attack, and their talents also allow them to get up to 50% stronger with the strengthened ability, allowing them to deal some insane damage against zombies. They're also one of the few units in the game with access to the Soul Strike ability, which allows them to attack the corpses of zombies, spawning them with less health if they revive, if not straight up kill them while in the corpse state. Something cool about them is that in their second and third forms, you could see the Grandan units in the background with slightly different designs, and seeing as Thermae came out before the Grandan units, this means that we have a few units that are directly based on another unit. Now for the Iron Legion set as a whole, most of the votes were really even, so even in fact that any of the units that were in the second and third rounds could have won, but Thermae kept on the top by the skin of their teeth. Recon Corps was at the bottom of the third round, only had 14 votes less than Thermae, and Death Destroyer was 7 votes apart. I guess that just goes to show that these Ubers are all really liked and all have their place in the meta. Coming in 12th with 22 votes is Adventurer Kana. Adventurer Kana is an uber rare from the Girls and Monsters set. Kana, like all the other girl mons, has multi-hit and before version 11.5 had an effective LD range of 300 to 700. However, thanks to Nala being added into the game 2 updates earlier, the idea of a unit with multiple spots to hit enemies became a thing. She now hits between 300 to 800 in her first attack, 250 to 750 in her second attack, and 500 to 1000 in her third attack. This might sound kinda bad, however, her main target is black enemies, who are prone to getting juggled around a lot, and having that backliner reach means that she can nail an extra hit against them. This is also to add that in her first and second forms, she has a level 2 surge that activates on her first hit between 400 to 700 range, which covers her first and second ranges and some of her third range. In her true form, this goes to level 3. Her true form also gains the magnificent ability of Behemoth Slayer. This means that she can deal some pretty nasty damage against any behemoth, especially ones who aren't surge immune. Because of how Behemoth Slayer works, she can absolutely shred through Dark Joe, being able to deal 10 times the base damage against them. Remember that because of Kana's multi-ranged attacks, even if Dark Joe is knocked back, he will most likely get hit again. A lot of people also really like her design, especially when it comes to her treasure chest, as it really sells the adventurer part of her name. People also like her personality and how it changes over the course of her 3 forms, going from someone who's terrified of the danger ahead to someone who looks like they're ready to take on the world. Kana was guided by the currents to a rather easy win from her set. As for the first 2 rounds, she had a third of the votes, and for the third round, had about half of the votes, with the others being split pretty evenly with Sea Maiden Ruri and Trickster Himiyuri, with only a 6 vote difference between the 2 of them in the third round. Coming from the peak of Mount Olympus, the goddess of love and beauty is Aphrodite with a final vote of 23 votes. Aphrodite is an uber rare from the Almighties, and as discussed with their Valentine variant, is a long-range sniper, but her specialty is against aliens. Aphrodite has a pretty good damage for her standing range, and can be used in several levels to destroy the enemy base even before the main boss is killed. The most notable examples of this are in Deathhawk and Vulcanizer. Aphrodite used to even be considered the best uber in her set by the community, until all the Almighties gained their true forms, and while most of them gained really good buffs, like Amaterasu and Ganesha, Aphrodite only got a health boost and pretty mediocre talents. That still doesn't mean she's bad at all, just that she received almost nothing. Anyways, her matchup against aliens is really nice, especially against enemies like Alpaki and Calamari due to their really high ranges. Especially for Calamari, since most of the time, Aphrodite could just one-shot the squid due to her not having a ton of health, even in late game stages. A few people also mentioned the little teddy bear cat that she puts on the side whenever she attacks, giving her extra detail that some might not notice. When it comes to the Almighty's voting, she cruised through the rounds pretty easily, and like with the Gromon set, had almost half of the votes and the other half being split between Amaterasu and Kronos rather evenly. Despite falling a bit from being the top uber, she still holds a strong grip on quite a few stages she's in. Slamming in with her comically large hammer is Pai Pai, who is the winner of the Busters category with 26 votes. Pai Pai is the mascot of the Red Buster set. In her first 2 forms, she deals massive damage and is resistant against red enemies with an immunity to weaken. Now you might ask, why does she have weaken immunity? What red enemies can weaken? Well, there are 2 main red enemies who can weaken, these being Baron Seal and more relevantly, Hanya. So relevant in fact that Pai Pai was released in the same update as Hanya, as if she was designed to perfectly counter them, being able to 4-shot them at level 30 with max red treasures. Her true form changes her resist ability to insane resist, giving her a ton more HP against red enemies. She also has talents that give her slow immunity to counter Professor A, survivors to ensure she can nail that last hit or 2, and honestly not that relevant, a chance to slow. She is the perfect counter to any red enemy and is a must bring to any red stage, as she will make it 100 times easier. There's also a few people that quote a rather memorable line from Pudis Engage.
I'm coming for you!
The Busters were all pretty even in all the rounds outside of the first, especially when it came to Hellwar and Emma, but Pai Pai always managed to get those small bits of extra votes. Sirius was also always a few votes below Pai Pai, but the fact that it was almost a 50-50 split definitely says something about just how good both of these units are. Coming in a tidal wave of gunshots is Kazujizo, who gained 27 votes in the finalist round. Kasajizo is from the Ultra Soul set and is arguably the most influential uber rare over the entire history of the Battle Cats community. Back in the day, he was considered one of the top 3 ubers in the game due to being extremely good, but he has definitely fallen off slightly. If you want to know more, check out my videos about power creep, but back on the topic. Kasajizo targets Black and Angel enemies, and because of his spam ability, can easily steamroll through most stages featuring these traits if given proper support. He is also notable for being able to outrange R-Ost, who's usually regarded as the worst enemy in the game, and because of Jizo's damage output, can be a great ally in taking him down. Since Jizo targets black enemies, he makes every XP stage outside of XP Bonanza so easy since the black enemies present just kinda crumble to him. Also, fun fact that no one mentioned, first form Jizo has the fastest recharge out of any uber rare in the game, having a recharge of only 3.87 seconds long. Most people don't talk about his third form, but I might as well mention it. Their damage output is pretty great and they have a good standing range, but most people only use his first form. The stone statue atop his back with the gun is also a design detail that is quite popular as well, as his rather egg-like shape. For the votes in the Ultra Soul set, Jizo easily swept the competition, with the Grateful Crane coming in second, but even he was far from reaching Kasajizo. Jizo's place in the community is huge, and this is reflected here as well. Bora, who is the winner of the second tiebreaker vote against Kasajizo, is the Drake Spirit from the Elemental Pixie set. I wonder if the Toronto Raptors is their favorite NBA team. The Pixies are a set like Ultra Souls, whose first form works as a weaker, more spammable version, but unlike Ultra Souls, most people use the final forms for these ubers, and Bora is no exception. Bora in their true form deals massive damage and is resistant against aliens with Barrier Breaker along with Warp Immunity. With talents, they also gain Slow and Weaken Resist, but mainly the Strength of the ability, which allows them to deal 50% more damage when at 33% health. This makes them deal an absurd amount of damage against aliens. Their tankiness against them is also really great. Their whole matchup against aliens is so good in fact that some people have called Bazibastra the Alien Buster, similar in vein to units like Pai Pai as discussed earlier. Another point some people made was that Bora was famously used in Suptasta's one-slot challenge for the majority of Into the Future due to Bora's great stats. The video where he goes through Into the Future Chapter 1 and Into the Future Chapter 2 has, of the making of this video, 3.1 million views. Keep in mind that Bora almost carried Suptasta through most of Into the Future Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, only hitting a wall for a long while on Chapter 2's moon until he unlocked Lumina, who is the legend rare of the Elemental Pixies and probably one of the only anti-alien units who's better than Bazibastra due to their sheer tankiness, but Bora still has a much higher damage output per hit. This is to highlight Bora's influence in the Battle Cats community, which is absolutely crazy to even think about. For the votes, the only competition Bora had was between Gravity and Volley, who were very good in their own right, but in the end, Bora triumphed as the most popular Elemental Pixie. Coming in at a wispy number 7 is Miko Mitama with 29 votes. Miko Mitama is an uber that is a part of the fabled Uberfest. She has different roles in her first form, a cheap wave immune LD unit who could tank a traded hit, and her second form is that of a very powerful crowd controller due to being able to slow all traded enemies for a few seconds. She is also immune to freeze, slow, weaken, and knockback across both forms. Mitama has a lot of knockbacks, especially in her second form having 15. This gives her excellent repositioning as she could take quite a few hits from any traded enemy. Her crowd control abilities are some of the best in the game, as the majority of stages she can single-handedly bring an enemy push to a grinding halt. Her design across both forms is also very well liked, from her first form being a chaotic being running around using her magic wand on everything to her second form being a bridal figure with her many spirits. When it came to the voting of the Fest Ubers, it was pretty split amongst all of the Ubers outside of Garu and Iz, and in rounds 2 and 3, each of the votes were very close to each other. However, Mitama came out victorious. What these results show is that these Ubers are all liked, and it was very hard to choose a favorite for some. Bouncing her way to the 6th place is Kai with 33 votes. Kai is an uber rare from the Cyber Academy Galaxy Gals. She is the definition of a tanker, low range but extremely high health and attack, like nearing Dr. Clay levels. She resists floating enemies, and because of her being so tanky against set enemies, she's one of the most valuable units you could have for Manic Flying, as she can dish out some powerful shots against them while sitting there tanking hits. She also has the Survive ability, which mainly helps absorb one last hit before going down. In her true form, she doubles her speed and is immune to knockback, which can be super useful when dealing with several enemies such as Elder Sloth, Sleipnir, and King Wawa. Kai was already a super good unit before her talents, but with talents, she instantly became one of the best anti-Aku Ubers in the game. This is because she gains a 100% chance to pierce shields. Thanks to her speed, damage, and health, she could rush into the range of an Aku enemy, tank their hits, and if their name isn't Mamon or Jagondo, nearly kill the enemy, if not at least cripple them. Another thing about her is that she has somewhat of a lower cost compared to your average Uber, only costing 3,990 cents to send out, making her easy to send in. Her cooldown is also rather fast, only having a cooldown of 71.2 seconds. This means you can easily get her in multiple times during the course of a battle. On a related note, did you guys know that in the game Facade, if you type in the word melon, you will get kicked out of Tripp and Grace's house immediately? Kai always held the top position, and the only real competition she held was against Lilin, mainly due to them both being excellent anti-Aku units, but Kai is more versatile when it comes down to the whole meta of the game, which is probably why she won this poll. Also, there were a few of you who decided to use some very choice words when discussing Twin Stars during the Galaxy Gals vote, and all I have to say is,
Stop it. Get some help.
swimming in 5th is Sea Serpent Daliazin with 34 votes. This big fish comes from the Dragon Emperors. This big fish has a rather high standing range of 510 with an LD between 310 to 710 range. He also has a 100% chance to slow floating and angel enemies for 4 seconds, along with a 20% chance to deal triple damage thanks to his Savage Blow ability. He is also immune to knockback and has the Colossus Slayer ability. Like Aphrodite, Daliazin has the reputation of being one of the best snipers in the game due to his high damage. While his base damage is lower than Aphrodite's, his Savage Blow will deal more than double what an Aphrodite of the same level can deal. He also has great utility when it comes to slowing angels and floating. Daliazin pairs extremely well with Sanzo due to his rather long slow time, allowing Sanzo to be more consistent. Daliazin is also famous for being the star of a few memes in the community, most notably Le Fish and Kill the Fish from Dragon Emperors. Daliazin is also one of the best Colossus Slayers due to his high standing range. For the Gauntlet 6, he is viable in all of them outside of Big Pang Z and Super Hippo. For Baron Seal, he could slow the absurd Angelic Gories, directly slows Archangel XL and Megamuth, and even outranges Legrim and nukes their Albros. Several people also noted that it has a striking resemblance to Duke Fishron. For those who don't know, Duke Fishron is a boss found in Terraria's hard mode difficulty, and yeah, I can see the resemblance between these two mighty sea creatures. When it comes to the voting, Daliazin and Ganglion were always at each other's throats while none of the other dragons stood a chance. However, Ganglion was just short of the votes needed to be the most popular Dragon Emperor, and Daliazin came out on top.
The One Piece! The One Piece is real!
Sailing in from the 7 seas on an over 1,000 episode journey is our 4th place spot with 39 votes. This being Tekaluga. Tekaluga is found in the Tales of Nekaluga, who is also home to the very first Uber, who is also the namesake of the set, but this isn't about them, this is about Tekaluga. Tekaluga is a rather simple unit. They deal big single target damage from afar. So far in fact, Luthien can outrange Director Kurosawa. They can even land a critical hit, meaning that they can sometimes nuke any metal enemy in the game from existence. I am not exaggerating about that by the way, and this unit is known to give a free win on Metal Cyclone, cause even a level 10 Tesseland can one-shot it with a critical hit. They got some talents as well, though the main one is the increased crit chance from 20% to 30%, allowing for more consistency on critical hits. A lot of people know that he's a reference to Monkey D. Luffy from one of the most popular manga and anime, One Piece, but I still bring this up because a lot of people mentioned it. Luthien is also famous in the community for Chihala's famous boss killer videos, which have garnered millions of views, and in said videos demonstrate Luthien's extreme damage values. The vote for the Nekalugas was mainly gonna come down to Tekaluga versus Togaluga, but I was very surprised to see Balaluga so high in the popularity list. Though I suppose part of that is that most of the Ubers in this set kinda suck, so there is that aspect to it. One last thing to note is that the mascot of the set was kicked out round 1, so I figured I'd mention it because I think it was funny. He's coming in hot with a big stick. It's Lesser Demon Cat at number 3 with 42 votes. Lesser Demon Cat is from the Dynamites, a set which consists of Ubers who are usually cheaper and with a faster recharge than their contemporaries. Lesser Demon isn't anything impressive, but if you take your time, raise him like a child, or your cherished maple tree, he will become one of the most powerful units in the game. Talented Balrog has the highest raw DPS in the game, even higher than a level 50 Awakened Bahamut's 39,000 DPS, which is the 3rd highest in the game. At level 50, he has an absolutely bonkers 54,000 DPS. This is before his Strengthen, which unlike most units who get Strengthened, Balrog's damage increases threefold, dealing 364,000 damage with an absolutely absurd 160,000 DPS. This bad boy also comes packaged with Weaken Immunity, no investment needed. Balrog with cost down talents becomes the same cost as Dancer, and for those who don't know, that's only 22.50 cents. Balrog also has a cooldown of 28.2 seconds. This means that Balrog straight up has the fastest recharge out of any uber rare who isn't intentionally designed to be spammable, like the First Form Fest, Nekulugas, Pixies, or Ultra Souls. I mentioned in my video about Kankan that Kankan is the cheaper version of Balrog due to both serving basically the same role, big single target damage. Many people also like his design, as he has the Infernape look with his head being on fire and has a massive club, which is also on fire. For the voting process, it was clear early on that this would come down to between Lasvos and Lesser Demon, both of which are famous for their absurd damage thresholds, though it seems that Lasvos' raw 1 million damage with Savage Blow and Strengthen couldn't handle Balrog's absurd DPS numbers. Soaring high in the sky is our number 2 on the list, being Sanada Yukimura with 50 votes. Sanada Yukimura is from the Sengoku War Gods Vajra set. Yukimura has always been a good uber, even before true forming, but true forming him gives him some good stat boosts. Talents only make this even more so. Yukimura is a very powerful rusher that is even comparable to Bahamut, and speaking of which, there's massive debates that occur on whether a maxed out Yukimura is straight up better than Bahamut. Part of this has to come down to him having more health as well as having Strengthen, which boosts his initial hit to be about the same as a level 50 Bahamut. His recharge is also about twice as fast and only costs 2/3 of Bahamut's price, meaning you can get more Yukimuras onto the field as well as him not eating as much of your wallet. Yukimura also absolutely shreds through black enemies to a pile of dust due to his massive damage abilities. Yukimura's design is also considered one of the best in the game, with the red horns and red tips of his wings and claws to the slick jet black of his upper wings, making him very visually appealing. Yukimura is also probably the least surprising out of any uber from any set, since if you look at the round results, he alone takes half of the votes in round 1, takes almost 60% in round 2, and literally has 2/3 of all votes in round 3, giving him a super majority. Well, all I could say is that Yukimura is the biggest bird, even bigger than an ostrich. Before I get to number 1, I just want to say that if you're enjoying the video, give it a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel as it supports me in the long run, and comment down what your favorite uber is in the comment section, as I'm interested in what you have to say about your favorite uber. Anyways, time to get to our number 1. Now let me ask you this, mi amigos. Who is brave and ready for trouble? Who is so unbelievably humble? Who is the gato who rolls the dice and gambles with his life? Who's never been touched by a blade? D'Artagnan is never afraid and takes the number 1 spot with an astounding 118 votes. D'Artagnan is an Epic Fest exclusive who deals massive damage against traitless enemies with a standing range of 340 with an LD of 200 to 550. He also has the Strengthen ability, which doubles his damage at 60% health, is immune to waves, and is immune to warp. D'Artagnan is one of the most powerful anti-traitless ubers in the game, to the point where it can make almost any traitless enemy a pushover, including the notorious OST. People also really like his design, and we can see that his smile goes away when he evolves. He also gains an eye patch. The cat on top also goes through a radical change upon evolving. D'Artagnan can also be a pretty good generalist thanks to his Strengthen, and at level 30, he has a respectable 5,000 DPS, but this shoots up to 10,000 DPS with his Strengthen ability, and that number goes to 30,000 against traitless enemies. When looking at how people voted for the Epic Fest Ubers, I was surprised to see D'Artagnan take such a massive lead against Kazli the Bane for the first few rounds, and in round 3, it was basically just Kazli versus D'Artagnan, but Dark eventually came out on top. I can definitely tell you that some people voted for him mainly because they would much rather Dark win the vote rather than Kazli, as Kazli is one of the most controversial units to be released into the game, but in the end of the day, D'Artagnan won out, and due to his spot on the list, I could say he is the most popular uber rare in the Battle Cats. So, I want to conclude this video by thanking everyone who helped vote in this event as a way to celebrate me hitting 10,000 subscribers. I literally could not have done it without you all, so take this as my thank you gift. As always, if you haven't already, give this video a like, comment down your favorite uber rare, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to join this amazing community. Anyways, have a wonderful day everyone.